Good day everyone, so as the video title suggests, have Fontaine characters effectively replaced Inazuma characters? That's what we'll talk about, and this is an interesting idea. It was an idea that Chloe brought to my attention in the comment section, and at first glance it seems kind of plausible. If you think about it, Uemiya replaced by Lini, Kokomi by Farina, Ito by Navia, Ayato by Neuvillette, and it's very easy to draw the parallel. But what I want to do in today's video is look at some of the optics and really see if this idea holds merit. Has Fontaine really just been an Inazuma 2.0 in disguise? Well, to start answering the question, let's look at most obviously the characters. In my opinion, I think a character like Resley has directly Powercrept Ayaka, mostly because he is not burst reliant. It's far more easier for you to hit your targets. You've got access to the Marichuset sets, which really plays very nicely into his gameplay loop. Whereas with Ayaka, you need to freeze your targets, and then your Blizzard Strayer set is going to give you 40% crit. So a conditional on freeze type of playstyle using your elemental burst versus Resley that basically gets 30% like crit rate that fits very naturally into his playstyle into almost any situation. You can definitely see the upgrade that is right there. I must remind everyone that not being burst reliant is a huge advantage, especially for newer players that are playing in the overworld in regions like Fontaine or Inazuma, where you don't have as many mobs grouped up to get as many energy particles being funneled. So yes, this is something that you need to be aware. I know a lot of you are veteran players and you only think of the Spiral Abyss, but from a new player's perspective, really not being burst reliant is a huge quality of life improvement when you get the character. So the next character on my list is obviously going to be Uemiya, and as you can see in the background, we're running around with Lini. Lini is just so much smoother, his animations are so much better, and honestly, if you build him well and you put him in the right team, then conditional upon the fact that you've got a couple of pyro units with him, he can deal damage that even surpasses Hu Tao. It's really crazy that his damage ceiling is so high. And in contrast to Uemiya, his constellations really add a lot of power. It's almost like for the exact same dollar amount that you would spend on Lini, you're getting a lot more out than you would from Uemiya, and I think it's not really a point that a lot of you can contest. It is just simply the truth. Right, so moving on to the next character, I want to talk a bit about Kokomi. Now, basically, Kokomi is my favorite character and the character that I main, but it's very obvious that a character like Farina has not so much power crept Kokomi, but certainly feature crept. Basically, when Kokomi came out, there was this bug which allowed her to walk infinitely on water, and lo and behold, before you could even learn how to use the bug, the devs instantly fixed it. Whereas nowadays, well, the fact that a character like Farina can allow you to walk on water any place, anywhere, anytime for as long as you like, effectively removing a lot of the tedious gameplay mechanics that plagued a lot of us that are older players. Well, basically, it's a quality of life change that's just so obvious. And once again, Farina being able to do a lot of damage that is not tied to her elemental burst is a big plus and benefit. Now, obviously, when it comes to the Spiral Burst, there's a lot we can talk about in terms of meta and all these things, but if you really just put yourselves in the shoes of a casual player, someone that doesn't know what they're doing, the ease of the fact that you can do a lot of damage, that you have a bit of healing with Farina, you can walk on water, you can disable all the Fontaine enemies, you can have an easier time underwater when you miss your abilities due to her exploration abilities, you can dolphin dive. The fact that you've got so much packed into this character like for like, and that she is better in exploring Inazuma than Kokomi, means that from a feature creep and identity perspective, Farina has it all, and I think she has very effectively power crept and feature crept Kokomi, certainly from her constellations. Once again, when you spend $100 getting like for like constellations on Kokomi versus Farina, Farina is just going to give you a lot more. And that is the sad truth for me as a Kokomi main. The next character I want to talk about is Ayato, which is a character that has not only no story identity, but also lost all of his combat identity due to the fact that Nouvelette exists. I cannot really think of any good reason to use Ayato outside a couple of niche burgeon situations, but basically Ayato was an attempt for Hoyo to move away from the burst reliant playstyle, and I think as a Hydro unit he obviously had a bit of like support capabilities, enabling normal attacks with his burst and all of that good stuff, but as a character that's going to do the thing that people care about the most, and that is dealing damage, Nouvelette is just a far superior option. I think it is such a direct and blatant power creep, I don't even know what else there is to say. The next character I want to talk about is Ito. Basically, he is just geo-locked to having a team of geo characters on him, and Navia is not. Basically, Navia once again is not burst reliant. Who would have guessed that? She only needs to use her elemental skill. You don't need other geo characters to make use of her effectively, and she has many more teams that you can play with, whereas Ito gets enhancements from his elemental burst in order to do a lot of Unga Bunga damage. He basically needs Goro to function effectively, and well, you basically get the gist by now. What a lot of people care about is not the fact of who is stronger between Ito or Navia, but the fact that you can play Navia with more teams and more of your other characters than you can with Ito. So in that sense, the fact that she is not tied to Geo, it just means that she is just better than Ito. I'm sorry to say it. I find Navia a lot more fun, the playstyle is a lot more interesting, and it's mostly due to the fact that you have Navia on field, but to charge up her skill you can also be off field and swap to your other units, whereas with Ito you have to take the field, you have to take the stance and dish out the damage with him, which is just less flexible and fun. Alright, so let's move on to the next character, and that's going to be Kazuha. Now a lot of people are going to be like, well, there is no Fontaine Animo unit that power creeps Kazuha, and you're correct. There is a unit called Chevreuse that to a smaller or lesser degree can take over the functioning of Kazuha, and she does this by enabling your Pyro and Electro units, on the condition that you only have those two in the team, to basically double shred the Pyro and Electro res on the opponent, which is crazy. At C6 she can effectively give you a 60% elemental damage bonus and both Pyro and Electro, which is also crazy, so you don't need to double sword with Kazuha, and she also gives you attack and then Pyro resonance, so effectively Chevreuse in the right situation really power creeps the value and the utility that someone like Kazuha can provide. And not only that, we've seen that Kujo-Sara herself is seeing a lot less use because she is more clunky and she is going to provide less value at C0 than a C0 Chevreuse, and effectively one of Raiden's stronger teams that we're seeing right now involves using Chevreuse, Bennett and Xiangling instead, so effectively this Fontaine unit has taken care of not just Kazuha but also Kujo-Sara, which is really insane in my opinion. Regardless, some of the units that haven't really been power creeps, obviously Raiden Shogun, I don't think they'll ever balance or create characters that will give her such like direct competition. I do think that if they want to target anyone, they'll probably go for Yaemiko next, although I think the only way they'll do it is if they make it conditional again. So basically something like this character has off-field Electro, but if you trigger Superconduct or something, then it's going to give you much higher damage bonus, but if you still use the generic Yai, you'll do better with her. This is how I'm seeing the game evolve. Effectively, a lot more little conditions, in air quotes, attached, and if you meet those conditions, you'll do better than some of the older characters, although I think a lot of these conditions are laughably easy to meet. But from the sense of everything we've discussed right now, I think if you do this direct comparison between the Fontaine and the Inazuma units, it is literally the most egregious out of all of the regions. And hence why I personally think that Hoyo themselves have done this not to spite us as older players, but to effectively attract and get newer players in. Remember, they can all play Fontaine, but to get to Inazuma you're AR locked, you are also Leeway quest locked, and that just means that it is far less fun when you're on your Genshin Impact journey to level up your Inazuma characters, whereas your Fontaine characters get all the benefit. And that is really what I think is happening. I don't think there's any consideration for the metagame and the Spiral Abyss or any of that, or the 4-star competition that they currently have in China, or some of the speedruns for Wales. None of that really matters. What really matters to Hoyo is polishing up the new units so that they can get you to play the game long enough and not to be irritated by the annoying Inazuma mechanics, so that as a new player you can hopefully just swipe once. Once you've swiped once, Hoyo wins, and literally you now become an old player, and they're going to find a new player to sell new units to. So don't be surprised if in a couple of patches a lot of the other units that we love, for instance like Yaemiko, get directly or blatantly Powercrept. In fact, I'm going to make a prediction. I really foresee that Yaemiko and Kokomi will also start losing and dropping out in terms of relevance as we get more and more characters. I definitely think with Sijuan also coming as a Hydra unit and clearly being tied to healing, it's going to be rough for our Coco girl. So it's, yeah, interesting times ahead. That's what I think. That is in a nutshell also what Chloe thinks. Tell us what you guys think below in the comment section. And yeah, this is an interesting conversation. It's just such a shame, I think, with all of this being said, that the one thing that still holds true is that us as old players are not recognized, and it also feels like a lot of the units that we did spend our primo gems and currency on are not as valuable anymore. And I think that's just, it just doesn't feel good. But I mean, hey, Hoyo has to make money apart from their already massive amount of billions, so who gets to suffer? The older players. Thanks for watching.